thing where I forget to record a lot. So we're recording. Jason, we've talked about the Yankee hat before. Marissa, one conversation at once. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the two articles on the Southwest and begin to look at the cultures that are the first two we're going to study. And I hope you read my note in the beginning where I'm moving away from using the term civilization. What do we think of that? Gabby, I see you were nodding.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm fine with moving away from civilization. I feel like it's one of those words that we use to like make somebody else's culture like not, um, you know what I'm saying? I just can't think of the word. Like, I feel like it's like it reminds me of when you call like when you say like a black person acts white because it's kind of like we associate education with like whiteness and like the whole nine, you know.
Yeah. I think you're right. Do other people have opinions on that? I mean, it's something I fell into for years, even in naming this course. And then as I was preparing the course, it's actually when the person asked the question, I think the first day, didn't First Peoples care for their land? Then I got to be thinking about when did that care switch? And it shifted as they became, quote, civilized. And I realized it's a very hierarchical term and very laden. So when I use it, which I will use because I'm a creature of habit, please, as you will on other things, feel free to correct me because it's just a term. I mean, after this year, I will rename the course too. And it's interesting that almost all the literature refers to civilization, except for those written by indigenous people, and they don't. So we're gonna look at the two cultures, well, the three cultures in the Southwest. Anybody have any? Am I boring you, Jason? No. Okay. Um, and are there any other questions? Guadalupe, does your camera work? And Chantal, Guadalupe and Chantal, are you there?
Oh, yes.
Your camera work? Does your camera work, Chantal?
I just woke up.
I know, but Shania wants to see what you look like when you just woke up. And Guadalupe? Oh, Guadalupe. Okay, I'm going to proceed. I'm going to call on people a lot when their cameras are off because I don't know. I know Guadalupe. I know both Guadalupe and Chantel, and I know they're trustworthy folks, but it's a good way to find out. Okay, I understand. Guadalupe just wrote me a reason for not having her camera on. Okay, and use the chat box too. So screen sharing now. You see the screen?
Yeah.
It's too small. It's too small. No, it's not. Okay. What does the term Anastasia mean? I'll give you a hint. I'm one of them.
The ancient ones.
Yes, thank you very much. I asked somebody, I was talking to a group of young people yesterday and doing some organizing, and I mentioned I was a war protester, and they said for the North or for the South. And that kind of hurt my feelings. Get it? Civil War or the War of. Jewel, you like that?
I was like, how old did they think you were that you were, they were asking if you were on the side of slavery or not?
Or side or states' rights or not. In Missouri, we were taught it was the war against Northern aggression. They never had slavery in the curriculum. Anyhow, starting off with the Diamond article, and these are things, these variables, I'm going to just put them up here, are things that I want you to bear in mind with each group we talked about. Because with the exceptions of the Aztecs and the Inca, who ran into the Spanish, every other group self-destructed at some point. And Diamond tries to come up with a typology of things that happened. And environmental impact, you'll always get questions on that. Climate change. On the homework, on this one, some of you discussed climate change, but didn't discuss how we knew about it. So we'll talk about that. What are their internal trade policies, religious and political complexities, and external attacks? I'm thinking of a country somewhere between Canada and Mexico. Could you think of that country and see if they are going through these things right now? How are we doing on the environment?
Terrible.
Climate?
Terrible.
Internal trade is a mess. And with the tariffs, it's even worse. Our political complexities have gotten worse and worse and worse. There's the far right in religion. And the external attacks, which we thought were real, are really the enemy within. Marissa, do you want to have the person you're talking to join the class? Okay, so I want you to bear these in mind. I mean, has anybody read Diamond's full book called Collapse? He takes a number of, again, I almost fell into the word civilization. Here's the deal. Every time I use the word civilization, you get extra credit on your next quiz.
What's the alternative we're supposed to use? Sorry.
I'm struggling with that. I'm saying cultures now, but that's not good enough because we're talking about a complex societies
But in indigenous literature, like how do they refer to themselves?
by themselves. Like the Navajo will say the Navajo or the people. Each group calls themselves by their proper name. I don't know, Joe, that's a great question. And I would really like some help on that because I don't think cultures does it because the complex cultures is about values and beliefs. And each of these groups has those, but they also have internal structure or hierarchies. So I'm going to stick with cultures, knowing that it's not the best, but it's better than civilizations. But if you could come up with something else, that would be cool.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
It's Des. For one, do you see the chat when you're presenting?
I can, except when I'm at full screen. So is there something in the chat now?
No, because okay, so you can't like when you're like
If I left full screen, I could,
oh
but then you guys can't see it. Can't see. Could you see the screen okay now?
yeah, I see like your desktop background.
Yes. Do you know any of those famous people?
Well, it's all covered
Okay.
by your like PowerPoint thing.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, let me try one other thing. That's a good point, Des. You see the PowerPoint, right? Now,
Yeah.
if I think I got a plan. I think I got a plan here. Nope.
Don't you have more than one screen?
Yeah.
Just put the chat on the other screen and present from this screen. When you screen share, doesn't it give you the option about what screen to show?
It does. So let me try that. So in chat, I see Loopy. Now I'm going to share the screen, but I don't know if you'll see the screen. I really appreciate also all the help on technology. Now see, then I lose my chat. So today, Des has volunteered to monitor the chat, and we'll rotate that as we every day. Okay. Is that okay, Des?
So I like when someone puts something in the chat, I tell you, oh, someone said this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also this class is small enough that you could just speak right up if you want. But there might be
figure out how to do that because I know you can do it. And
yeah. Well, actually, give me a second.
Okay. Sometimes it's just easier to like put the answer in the chat.
I totally share. I totally get it. You do not see the other screen now, right? I have another plan that might work. No, every time I do that, it wipes out the thing. Let me try this. This is fun. Oh, I think I got it. I think I might have it. Share screen. Are you seeing the thing now?
No.
Oh, I want my mother. I really want my mommy. Are you seeing it now?
No.
Last try. Are you seeing it now? Oh, wait. Are you seeing it now?
Absolutely not.
Okay, share screen. Now, no. Now. Let me go back over here. Okay. Okay, if it doesn't work this way, it'll work the other way. Are you seeing something now?
Yes.
Okay, but it's still not allowing me to see the chat, but now I could play with this thing.
Wait, Dr. Suri.
Yeah, please.
Also, can't we call them like the Anasazi Society? Like, can we just call these,
Yeah,
instead of civilization, call them societies?
yes. I think society is certainly a better word than culture. This is interesting. So you see the screen, but we don't see the chat. One more thing. Show chat. We could go live on Facebook. Shows the participants. Ooh, we're getting close, I think. Stop video security, maybe. Sorry about this, but this would make the class better. Pause, annotate, remote. No. I can't figure it out. So what we'll do is we'll go like this today, and Des will monitor the chat. So you see it, right? Everybody sees it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. And we have the 5 variables. I'm going to try
Wait.
one more.
It's not full screen. I see it in your presenter mode.
Okay, I have another idea too, which is really radical. Now, where'd you go? I got rid of my other screen. Now, if I get out of full screen, this is really fun. Me making a fool of myself. Now I can't find my mouse.
Dr. Suri, did you want to pause recording?
I can't find my mouse. There's my mouse, and my mouse is no longer working. So I got to go to my alternative mouse. I will edit all this out so the world won't know I'm as stupid as you think I am. My mouse just died. New mouse. Mouse is in. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop sharing screen for 1 second. Chat is working and it's still Guadalupe. Share screen. And I still don't have that. Okay, I think we should continue. What do you all think? Oh, wait.
I agree.
I got it. Who the man? Who the man?
You the man.
I the man? Who the man?
Hey, Dr. Suri,
What?
it's in presenter mode, so I see your next slide and I see all the slides at the bottom.
Okay. This I could fix. This is humorous, right? Share screen. Chat is up there. Going in back of my screen. Taking a hit of the peyote. Okay, now we got the other screen back up there, in theory. This is just a lot of fun so far today. Are you guys having as much fun as I am?
Absolutely.
Why is this not? Uh-huh. This is good to know though. That goes to there. Uh-huh. Okay. I have my chat and I have my other screen. We have, ta-da!
I hate to tell you that the screen's
I
clear.
know. It felt so good for a second. And I lose the chat again. Okay, we got to continue, right? That is just bizarre. Okay. So this is the region that we're talking about. And you can see it's the 4 states, the 4 corners region. And we're going to really look at 3 groups, the Hohokam, the Anasazi, and in here is where the Membes work. And they all follow different paths. They lived in the North Black Mesa. What is a mesa? Y'all, what's a mesa?
Table.
What?
Table.
Do I have to speak in do I have to translate Spanish?
Table.
Table.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. Table. Okay. All 3 groups, there were several groups. So to call them that is just a generalized term for the region. And still doesn't show. Okay. The one group here, they were the last, and they had cliff dwellings, but I want you to look at these in comparison to some of the others, particularly Mesa Verde. What do you see here?
Windows.
Windows, yeah. And it's built into the rocks, but it's really a single story, right? Because they didn't have the complexity of some of the other groups. And it has a very fragile environment. To me, and Marissa, you could tell the person you're talking to about this too. Marissa, what do you see here? You can see, oh, I could do something cooler. You can see where my arrow is pointing to. Text, draw, symbol. You see this area here? See where I'm pointing to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see there? Do you see water?
Are those like aqueducts or something?
No. What they are is where the river used to be. And as they overdeveloped the area, and every time they did, the water would get deeper, the water table would get lower and lower. Now this mouse is not playing nice either. Okay. This is not fun. Okay, now go. Okay, good. So that's important. You see how it gets lower and lower and lower. So this might be one of those Mondays. Okay, they had unpredictable rainfall. How do we know about the unpredictable rainfall? We'll get to this in more detail later. What's our evidence of this?
Is it because they have the cliff looking thing on the top of them, like protecting them from like their house getting like messed
Well,
up?
that would protect them from rain and from one other thing, enemies. But how do we measure how much rain they had each year or each period?
Crop production.
Crop production is one, yeah, because you can't. What else?
Don't you also do like is it the tree ring method where you like look at like the rings within the tree to like see if they had a drought or how long they had a drought for?
Yeah, the tree rings will reveal the drought. Also, carbon dating of what's in the soil. And they quickly exhausted their soil, which is why the water levels dropped so much. So when these were first built, they were right on the water. And then you look at how quickly the trees grew. And the rapid population growth was too much for the forest, too much for the food supply, and too much for the water supply. And one of the reasons we know about food supply is poop, because we look at what they ate through the coprolites, the poop, and we see that the food sources came from further and further away. But the key is really the water. Okay. Does anybody know what this is called? It's a kiva, which is a religious ceremony. And around 600 CE, the Shaka had underground pits, and then they began their stone dwellings. And by 920, they had 2 stories. Now, this is kind of the key. By 1100, they have 5 or 6 stories. They were huge and were the largest buildings in North America in Pre Columbian. Now, the logs were 700 pounds each. Where did they get the logs from? They just went to the woods in back of their house? Come on.
Didn't they get it through trade from like outlying groups because they had run out of like timber, so they went as far as like 50 miles to get the
Yeah, who's talking now? You're right.
Marissa?
Yeah. And they had to go further and further out. And one of the things we're going to look at is how they got these groups to do what they wanted them to do, because they didn't really have a lot to offer. But this was completed in 1100, but by 1200, they abandoned the entire area, which is amazing because they built this complex structure of buildings, of religious centers, forced trade, and then within 100 years, they were gone. And in 2021, I can't say that for a fact, but I was there in 2020, there were no trees, water, or vegetation in this area. So when they defoliarized, they did a thorough job. This is what the insides look like. Passages from room to room. Could you see what I'm pointing out now, or do I have to draw that ridiculous arrow again?
We see it.
Yeah, that's where they had timbers for beams, and that becomes very important. So questions that we should think about is, and this is where diamond plays a point, is what happened? How did it so rapidly go from a favorable environment, from a highly dense population, to empty? And again, if they were just doing ecocide on their own, they wouldn't have had that big of a dropout. So logically, even before we had these techniques, people were figuring out there had to be some climate change too. And that's been verified by demonstrating the droughts. Because everybody with me so far? This is pretty much straight out of the article. Now, you notice on your assignment for Thursday, I put you in small groups. People notice that?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I cannot stand my monotone. This is an aerial view of what it looks like today. Again, desolate, poor water management. They killed the floodplain. The high water table dropped. They did do some irrigation, yet it couldn't keep up with the demands of the population. Water table dropped, deforestation, and they cleared more and more of the forest for both land and timber for building. This is a theme that's going to repeat itself. Jewel.
Yeah.
The Aztecs, the Mayans, you remember that?
Hmm. What about them?
How they had to destroy all the forest around them in order to build their monuments?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So further erosion, and once the topsoil is gone, you don't have a chance. Does anybody farmed or had a garden? I have in my notes here, desperate attempt for conversation.
I have never had a garden. I live in the inner city and I've never had a garden, like a real one, ever in my life.
Okay. Anybody else? No farming?
I have.
What do you have?
My grandparents, when I lived with them, they had a garden. They have a vegetable garden and a farm.
Did they plant the same crops in the same place every year?
No, they rotate it.
Why?
To give like the soil like time to like recover from what they planted the prior year.
Yeah. Now that's the problem. For those of you that grew up in the inner city, vegetables don't grow in supermarkets. You knew that, right?
I know,
Yeah.
but my backyard was concrete, so I never had a garden.
Okay. Vegetable doesn't grow in concrete either. So they weren't able to rotate their crops because they didn't have enough space. So not only did they have erosion, but they were forced to plant the same crops in the same place every year. When we look at the societies, using the word I like now, in Peru, you'll see how they rotated their crops every year, which put off the inevitable. Now, I hate my life. My screen is frozen again now. There we go. Okay, pack rats and dendrochronology. Tell me about pack rats. Anybody? That's from the reading.
So they used like their like crystallized poop to tell us.
This is college. We don't use the word poop. What do we use?
Feces, I guess.
Copulite.
Coprolite.
Yeah, copulite. One of my favorite words. No shit. Okay. And what is dendrochronology?
The tree rings.
Yeah. And I'm going to show you if my mouse would ever do what it's supposed to do. Okay. Look at this. Tell me what you see here. These are from actual beams. Lumber. What do you see?
Ridges.
Yeah. Actually think of it as a circle that you split open. So every year a tree grows, and there is one tree in Brooklyn. Another ring appears, and you can see how thick this ring is. And then you see a series of very thin rings, then even thinner, which means drought, lots of rain. And Diamond was able to put up a lot of information about the varied collapses. And their populations at the time, change in the populations. You see among the members, abrupt, Mesa Verde, period of change, abrupt depopulation, but Hohokam, gradual, and they actually came back. They had less collapse. They reorganized into small villages and reoccupied within 100 years. Actually, the other article you read has them reoccupying in a couple generations, which how long is a generation?
I actually don't know. I hear people say it all the time, but I don't know the quantity of years that goes with it.
Okay, what generation are you? What are you called? Are you the millenniums or you're not? You're the next one.
I think it's Generation Z
I think
or
I'm
X or something
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
Generation Z. Des, what are you eating? Okay. You can't eat and monitor the chat at the same time. You know that, right? Fruit fly is 30 days. Human generations now are considered 20 years, 25 years. Used to be much shorter. Mesa Verde, thousands of people just totally depopulated. And you saw that. It's like the entire East Coast in the United States just left. And here they disappeared in phases. Somebody wrote in their questions, question 8, what would you like to see? And was there any sense of the direction? I think that was Des, right? That they moved and why? And they seemed to migrate north, each of the groups. And probably that was religious, but we really haven't decoded much of their religion. So this is what the poop looked like when the miners found it. And I think I mentioned the other day.
We're in college. We don't say poop, sorry.
Oh, yes. Archaeological remains of defecation, coprolite. Looked like candy. Do we have opinions on black licorice, whether we like the Australian or the non-Australian licorice?
It's gross, in my
I
opinion.
don't like licorice.
It's soft, the Australian. The US is stale. Okay. They would find old nest with fecal matter and garbage sealed within the urine that crystallized. And these people, the miners, ate it and got really sick. But after that, the scientists, it preserves vegetation and it could be measured with radiocarbon dating. What is radiocarbon dating?
Don't they use they study the carbon atoms to see how old they are, I think.
Yeah, and how much decay is. Right now, each of you is decaying. And when you die, you'll do it at a more rapid rate. And they could really measure with an accuracy, usually to within 50 years, up to 50,000 years ago, how old something is. And by 1000, they discovered that the diet had changed and now they were eating things that had to come from 50 miles away. Again, I'm walking you through this. Thursday, you're walking me through it. And they had no draft animals. What's a draft animal?
Animals that they use to
Carry things.
carry stuff.
So is a llama a draft animal?
No.
Aha, trick question. No, and then later on, yes. Okay. That some of the groups we'll look at, some of the societies did not use them as draft animals, just used them as lunch, but later on they did. And again, there was no wheel. So they had to drag them. And as we talked about last time, that meant that they had to have a certain group of people into forced labor, which meant very serious stratification. Here's the tree rings. This is another view of what you saw before. And you can see periods of rain, thicker and less thick. My friend Carl used to do this in the South Pole with ice, but then he died. So it measures rainfall, it measures the temperature, and you could work backwards from the center ring to see how old. So this is when the tree was first planet or first grew. Number of rings equal the number of years. Wider widths are the rainfall. And then they can actually match the rings. So you could see where the major drought began 80 years before depopulation. But see how they have overlap? What they did is they took some of the beams then, and they were able to match them with trees that were still existing today. And they were able to measure exactly how old these structures are. That's pretty cool, but I'm pretty Aspergerish too, I think. You really had to be into the minutiae of things. So in this particular building, you can measure the years. You can see 1050, then it matches, and then you go to the present, and this one went up to 1930. Okay, Mesa Verde. Nobody was on my Jewel, were you on the Southwest trip too?
No.
Okay. We got there once out of 3 times. The other 2 times we were snowed out. Now, does anybody see a difference in these structures than the other one that we looked at?
Is the thing on the ground used to trap the rainfall?
No, that was actually a religious ceremony called a kiva here, which is different than the kiva that the Navajo use. But what?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The other article said that the Mesa Verde, they had a lot of kivas and multi-walled structures in comparison to the other societies.
Yeah, they were certainly more complex. But you also see how some of the structures are larger than the others, which again suggests stratification. And that's an important point too. There were no water for crops, no key for construction, but a dense population. They subjugated, as was said earlier, the nearby populations for supplies, but it was a black hole. They couldn't offer anything back other than fear. And as they got weaker due to lack of water and lack of food, they lost that fear. And the last construction was them. And this is kind of what it looked like. So they had warfare. Now we know about warfare for a couple reasons. One is they had defensive walls.
They had weapons, they had artistic representations, there is skeletal evidence.
Yeah, as Jewel would know, because she's quite the artist, they had art depicting it. They had arrowheads in the bodies. That's a clue, right? If somebody's shot with an arrow, what does that tell you? They not only didn't have the wheel, but they didn't have targets for arrow practice, so they used each other. Or there was warfare.
Or helmets.
Yeah. Skulls that had been scalped. They had a lot of unburied bodies. Most cultures will bury their bodies. Evidence of cannibalism. I think somebody asked this in the homework. And how did we know that it was cannibalism? The bones were cracked. Why do you crack bones? Even today, this is done. My wife does it.
For the bone marrow?
Yeah, for the marrow. Her parents that were immigrants from Jewish Poland, that was a treat for them, bone marrow. Now you could buy it, but only in the fancy restaurants.
That's also done a lot in the Caribbean. Like my dad does that. I do too.
Yeah, it's really good, right? And they could also use muscle and protein. So getting back to Diamond's 5 variables, they kind of hit them all, right? As we do. We're having more of a civil war. So, any questions about the Diamond article? Okay, I want to move on and I'll get started on this one. which is probably a little bit more detail than you need, but it does reconstruct in different ways. Or I won't get back to this one. Here we have a frozen situation again. Okay. This is important. Resilient system. It contrasts with stability systems. Stability systems do not change. They do not adjust. Okay. That's really important because resilient systems absorb different disturbances and maintain general functions. In other words, they know something's off. So that, for example, if there's a drought, they might build canals or series of adjustments. But each of these groups in their own way, and almost every society we'll look at, failed to be resilient. And this is true for humans and non-humans. Okay, could you see this? Adversity affects the system and it requires adjustment and reacquired capabilities. For example, if we were more of a, Jason, please bite the inside of your lips to stay awake. We are destroying the planet by eating up fossil fuels, right? How could we readjust if capitalism didn't get in the way? We could simply switch to alternate fuel sources. Right now, we're stuck here. We haven't been able to do that. And this is more of a flow chart about food security, different messages, adaptability. There's something called the rigidity trap, where societies or segment of societies simply don't adjust. Attempt to maintain what had worked. And that was really the case in Mesa Verde. Global warming is something that we have not adjusted to. And we could have had a real quick clue. Because does anybody know what happened to the ozone layer in the first 2 months of the worldwide lockdowns?
Came back.
It actually began to came back in just a 2-month period. Unfortunately, we've gotten away from that. And last night's Super Bowl is another example of how stupid we could be. It's going to be another pandemic spreader. Fossil fuels, COVID mass resistance. Okay. We're not adjusting. We're trying to maintain the world that we had. The Mayans are a key factor of that. Then they get into these very complex charts, but compares all three areas, types of adjustments. This is right after the article. And again, period of change, abrupt. As you should look at this. Each of these were caught in more or less rigidity, but Hohokam actually was able to adjust better. They didn't adjust here. They had some health issues. How do we know about the health issues?
Their bodies?
Their bodies. You could show disease. You could show lack of nutrition from the bones. They had sporadic violence, not as much as Mesa Verde, which had sporadic health, but towards the end quite a bit. Intense violence, burnt houses, defensive cannibalism. They had a lot of health issues there and some violence. So again, all three within the same region changed.
So what about their sanitation? Did they have poor sanitation?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'll see if I could find out by Thursday. That's a wonderful question. Who asked that?
Chantel.
Okay. Now, one of the ways we also look at the power of a group is how much their products get sent. So this is pottery from the members, and we saw that it went out very, very far. We also saw that they changed their architecture to adjust. Mesa Verde had pottery, which initially went out pretty far, but then stopped going far. They stopped making, they stopped trading. And Hohokam, really don't know. It just kind of disappeared. And it wasn't nearly as complex. Okay, stop share. Anybody want to chat? Okay, I will finish this up. I only have 2 more slides to go on Thursday. And then you will get a few minutes to go into your groups. And then we will do presentations of each of the group on the mound people. Any questions?
And the homework is based off the reading that's on course content, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the article by Powell on the mound people. And I tried to break it up. There'll be some overlap into the 3 main points. Okay, so this is kind of my last lecture of the term. You guys are on. That way I could use the chat section. If anybody else could figure out the chat, let me know. Okay, see most of you Thursday. See some of you in 10 minutes. Bye.